Okay, right, so this is a tubular bell sequence. If you look at the music here, you've got 3 bars of 7/8, a bar of 9/8. So 3 7 to 21 plus 9, that's 30. So it's a 30 quaver sequence. And there's a little pickup note here, this E right at the beginning here. So basically we've got to try and get a 30 quaver sequence into our OPZ. So how do we do that? Okay, if you look at my little chart here, you'll see that we need 2 patterns of 14 steps each, because don't forget the OPZ works on 16 semiquavers. That's the basic default of the pattern. So we need to cut off the last 2 of pattern 1 and pattern 2. Pattern 3 we need to use all 16 steps, and to get our a bar of 9 we use that pattern plus pattern 4, which is 2 steps or 1 quaver. So basically if it says 16 steps it's 8 quavers, if it says 14 steps it's 7 quavers, if it says 2 steps it's 1 quaver. And once we've put those 4 patterns together, we then make a chain of pattern 4, which is our 1 quaver pattern, and then pattern 1, which is our first 14 step pattern, pattern 2, which is our second 14 step pattern, go back to pattern 1 again, and then pattern 3 is our 16 step pattern, which then loops back to pattern 4 for our extra note. It all works. It took a bit of figuring out, but it does work. Let's show you it on the OPZ. Right, so this is my first video on the OPZ. I've just come back to synths after a long while of being away. I bought a load of stuff for my iPad, and I bought this OPZ, which I'm absolutely loving. It's taken quite a bit of sorting out, but it is a brilliant tool, of course. So let's have a listen to pattern number 1. You can see it up on there. It says pattern 1, project 8 on the iPad screen. I've got the iPad app linked to the OPZ here. So here's pattern 1. Just play it. And it's just 7 quavers looping round. And the notes, I'm going to give you access to these sheets. So the first pattern is A, E, B, E, G, A, E. Just looping round. The sound I'm using, I got it from, let's have a look at the track. It's the lead track. So if I press track, you'll see this is lit up here, and you can see black button 3 is flashing, so it's the 3rd bank of sounds. It's set at octave 5, as if I could go down one and come back. Yeah, octave 5. Octave 5 is flashing, but I just go back, see, octave 5. So octave 5 and black button 3, and I'm using one of the sounds in that, and I think it's the one that lines up with this ramp down symbol here. But I basically just found a nice kind of bell harp sort of sound, which works really well. So that's pattern number 1. By the way, it's very important that for all these other tracks, so the bass drum track, the snare track, the percussion track, every track, and I've done it for all the tracks, including the effects and the master track and the tape track, that you make them all the same length as the main track. So the lead track is the one I'm using, and if I just show you that track, if I just do this, if I hit track and shift, you'll see these last 2 buttons are not lit, so it's a 14 step pattern, okay, and I've made all the other tracks 14 steps so that nothing runs out of sync. So that's that pattern. Let's try pattern 2 now. Now it's the same length, it's another bar of 7, so if I hold this down you see you get 14 steps, 7 quavers, and it's just a different set of notes. This one is C, E, D, E, B, C, E. And then of course you'll go back to your first pattern, and then you need this longer pattern of 9. So this is going to be pattern 3. Now obviously 9, 8, we've only got 8, 8, we've only got 16 steps. So we look at pattern 3, we're going to use all 16 steps, and we're going to use another couple of steps rather, in another pattern, chain those together, and that will give us our bar of 9, 8. So this is pattern 3. Let's just listen to it. So it sounds weird like that because it's just looping around on itself. And if we glue pattern 4 onto that, which is just this, if you look at the step count, only goes to 2, so that's just 1 quaver. And we glue that on the end of pattern 3, we get our bar of 9. Now if we look at our chain in our project there, we can see it's pattern 4, pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 1, pattern 3, and when the OPZ runs out of patterns in the chain, it just goes back to the beginning. And so if we run that, it should work perfectly. Let's run it from the beginning. Pattern 2, pattern 1, pattern 3, pattern 4, pattern 1, pattern 2. Don't forget, pattern 4 is only 1 beat long. And it just loops round. And it works pretty well, doesn't it? I haven't done any of the other sounds in the Tubular Bells riff. I started off doing it as a 7-step sequence because that didn't work because the looping round didn't work. So you've got to do it. You've got to basically remember that you've got a 16 semiquavers, and so you've got to make your basic 7/8 bar is 14 steps. A little bit complicated. If you've got any questions about it, do get in touch. Maybe you can run with this and do more than I've done. But love this little thing. It's great, isn't it? Really enjoying using it. Lots of fun. And like I said, I hope you find this interesting, and you'll see me in my next video.